Welcome to One on One. I'm Greg Bassey, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper, and today we have in our midst another state delegate, Sheree Sample Hughes. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Now, Sheree, I've known you for a long time, but I don't know you like I want to know you because you're one of those politicians who doesn't get into trouble. You don't do anything wrong. You don't take crazy stances that you have to explain yourself over and over and over again in the newspaper. You're just one of these quiet people who works very diligently and you get things done.
I'm going to count that as a blessing, that I'm not in the negative news, if you will.
You've never lost an election. You've barely ever even had any challenge. You always have been elected very easily because you're good at what you do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I certainly have been very thankful to serve the public and serve starting out District 1 and now have expanded into 37A encompassing Dorchester County. And it's just been truly a blessing. And I say that because I've always had the mindset that I wanted to connect people to resources and whatever the need may be to really see a positive outcome. And serving in this capacity has allowed me to do that, certainly on a much larger level. But even working on Saturday mornings in the trenches planting flowers with people on Delaware Avenue and bringing my children along, that in of itself is important because what I found was that the citizens were coming up to me while we're planting flowers, asking questions how they could get some of their issues resolved. Right. And we were able to do that in an informal format. And so it's been awesome, and I've been very thankful. Certainly a lot of work, but an opportunity to make a difference.
Well, District 37A.
Yes.
It's very difficult to represent because it looks like a snake the way it's drawn. It goes out to Cambridge. It's the majority district.
Yes.
And so you have Cambridge, you've got some Hurlock area, you've got Salisbury. What's it like to cover that distance?
It's quite interesting because while we're in certainly a rural area, but some of the issues are vastly different, as well as working with some of the towns. For instance, on Monday evening, I was in Hurlock, and the issue there was that we were trying to identify whether or not a traffic signal was necessary right there on 331 and 392, right, or if there were going to be four-way traffic stop signs. And so State Highway Administration came out and they did a presentation. I spoke my piece. And so we're all on the same page, and the town, they're now going to reconvene and decide whether or not they want to accept the suggestion made through that study. But I sat through the entire meeting, and it was good to hear how the citizens were asking questions, not, in a formal process, but they were just asking as decisions were being made throughout the agenda. Right. So that was a different kind of field, and they were, wanting to make a difference and wanting to see results right there in their community, and the council was, listening and making those changes. So it's been unique. And then I go on over to just working in Cambridge, as far as I had a community meeting right after session, and the format there was still structured, but it was a little different. And so, overall, it's been really good just trying to get back in and seeing and hearing what the needs are. I visited a county council meeting and what issues that they're working on. So it's kept me pretty busy since we've been out of session, but knowing that their issues are different.
I should talk about your state service when we will, but
Sure.
I'm so intrigued by when you were on our county council, because you were on the county council at a time when people didn't necessarily get along on the county council. There were some rough times there. But you always kept your peace about you. You seemed to be the calm among the storm. What was that like?
It was interesting. It was interesting. What I did find was that
strong personalities on that council.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And what I found was that it was necessary to be able to walk away from the table after we've made a decision that was very maybe not so popular, but to walk away from the table and still have respect for one another, and then still to appreciate each other's position or opinion, because I found that we all come from different backgrounds and experiences, and all that coupled together among several members, it makes a difference. So I made sure I would listen to everybody, but at the same time, it was important for me to stand by my convictions and also hear firsthand from the citizens that I was representing in District 1
Right.
and see how they felt about the issue and then bring that to the table. Certainly there were times where I got a little upset and made it known, and they were quite aware
But
of
Mr.
that.
Taylor, your predecessor, Mr. Taylor, used to get more upset.
We all had, different ways of handling business, and thankfully, throughout the 2 terms that I serve on the council, I can still say to this day, all of my colleagues, we still interact with each other, very respectful, and they understood where I come from, and same for me, likewise.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you go to Annapolis in January, freshman member, Republican governor, something
Yes.
completely new and different. How was that? What was it like getting to Annapolis?
Wow, it felt like going to school for the first day, where you had all this stimulation around you, and you know that you kind of want to get involved in so many areas, and at the same time also learning a lot of new friends, basically, when I'm using the school analogy, because I'm one of 148 individuals. And so that in of itself was a little bit of overwhelming, I should say at least, because I was appointed to the Health and Government Operations Committee, but I kind of felt like, whereas I used to be on the council, kind of felt like I needed to know what was going on in all the other committees and
Right.
really to feel whole and to be able to represent wholly, basically. And so that, to me, I had to figure out my niche, figure out what was going to work and how I was going to obtain the information to get back to the constituency. But the overall experience, I'm going to say, was certainly rewarding, as I have been able to meet so many individuals from many walks of life, whether it's the community organizations all the way up to, I met with a lot of doctors and dentists based on the fact that I'm on that Health and Government Operations Committee, and then they would come in and share their concerns with me, and everything was so quick, whereas if we were finishing up a committee meeting, I still had people waiting in my office to, meet with at least for 15 minutes each. And
Right.
but that was really a challenge, I want to say, because you're wanting to dig into the issue, but you also knew that you had 5 other appointments just
Right.
waiting around the corner. Then the issues very well could have been different.
One thing you hear about freshman members is they try to develop a mentor. Did you pick someone that you want to try to be like up there?
I did. Well, I shouldn't say I want to be like. What I did recognize that there were a couple of individuals that were really vigorous about what they're doing in their districts and have moved up in leadership throughout the years in the House. And actually, I had 2, I should say, but one in particular is my seatmate, Delegate Tawana Gaines.
Okay.
And she's been there for many years, and she actually came to me and she says, well, do you have a mentor, and would you like for me to be your mentor? So I felt good about that, because she felt as though that I was someone that she would love to, work with.
Right.
And it worked out extremely well. As I said, she and I sit beside each other. And so there are times where things are happening on the floor that the average person would not even take into account. And she was saying, did you just notice that? Did you watch that? I'm like, oh yeah, I got it. So, I mean, it's very interesting to have and see all the dynamics and just be able to be a part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, the healthcare committee is important because so much of what the state does is manage healthcare for so many people. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, indeed. I was informed that the Health and Government Operations is one of the hardest working committees there is up there.
And thankless type stuff.
I noticed
no glamour in that at all. No. It's not like
see.
budget or appropriation. There's no glamour at all.
Yes. I said, oh my goodness. So thankfully, I sat up close near the chairman, and that was good because I could, near the information would come in, and then also had a seasoned person on the left side of me in the committee room, which was very good because when the bills would come in, we're trying to initially understand what they were, listen to the testimony, but then also try to figure out what's going to be my plan of action on how to vote on these bills. So I had a little system down pat where I would type a little bit on my laptop and save the issue area and figure out who my contact person would be to follow up on it.
Right.
And that seemed to work. But a lot of bills that came through there, certainly they were discussing the amount of money that we had to pay, the state of Maryland had to pay back to the federal government for one area where the audits were taking place of the long-term care facilities, the hospitals, and it rose to the tune of $64 million. And so we had to make a decision on this particular bill of whether or not to allow the Inspector General to use a tool called extrapolation to go in to delve deeper into what the federal government audited to identify where the issues were, the coding issues, and
Right.
whether or not there were duplication. And so we worked diligently on that bill. Matter of fact, it was also in my subcommittee. I serve on the Minority Health Committee, and that was very intense. It was intense because we had stakeholders in the audience that had felt different, ways about the bill in of itself. But then we also had to do our best to uphold to the citizens of the state of Maryland to figure out what is the best method. Will this method work for the Inspector General for the state of Maryland to allow us to regain the funds back, to not let duplication of services go out and have the average taxpayer burdened with additional expenses.
Right.
And so that was a heated discussion. What has happened though, as a result of that, a work group over the interim period has convened, and they've met about maybe 3 or 4 times at this juncture, and we'll be able to hear what the updates are when we have our health and government operations retreat in September. And that's going to convene all of the members and give us updates on these summer work committees.
Right.
So we'll be able to hear what changes have been made. And I know there's been some things in the media, and so that information is good, but we'll be able to hear firsthand and then be able to make some decisions as we move through the session.
Right. And that's the kind of stuff that you're kind of on your own. It's not like they're talking about it back at church or you've got constituents that have some input on what you should do. You have to identify the problem and figure out a solution on your own, basically.
Yes, indeed. And really figure out, what's best and what's going to make sense long term. And I had to do that on a couple of bills, and one bill in particular I kind of I don't say stood alone on, but I felt good about it because I told the vice chairman, had to do with stop loss insurance. I made her aware that I needed to do my own personal research.
Right.
I could not make a decision in the committee at that particular time,
Right.
and I needed to have that time. And so I did. I reached out to individuals that I knew back here in Pocomoke County that had knowledge in that area, that had been doing insurance for years and knew where it would affect potentially small businesses and or government entities, and was able to then get a decision made on my own and move forward with that. And I'm thankful I did.
Right. What is the environment like with the disparity in the health between the races? Talk about that for me.
Well, ironically, we passed a bill that.
Is it access to care or is it?
It is.
Okay.
It is, and that was kind of where I was going to go with that. It is access to care, because again, we have to look at this holistically for the entire state of what the needs are. But right here on the Eastern Shore, it's access to care. Certainly in the mental health field, not having enough mental health professionals, and it's a key piece that everybody needs to be aware of. So there has been different pieces of legislation to ensure that mobile crisis units are more readily available to address some of those very issues. But then overall, we look at the need for a children health psychologist. Any gamut of area, unfortunately,
Sure.
is the access for our area and the need to have more resources. Case in point, optometrists, and that's been an issue of a concern about some of the things that they're able to do and not do as far as provide medication to persons who are in need of those, maybe a few topical treatments or whatever the case may be.
Right.
They're not able to do that in the state of Maryland, but ophthalmologists are. And so for our area in particular, it can become difficult if you visit your optometrist and unable to get the particular prescription that you may need. You may then have to go to an ophthalmologist. Well, you may have issue traveling. You may not have access to transportation to get to the next appointment. And so we need to really think more statewide what the true needs are, because access is an issue, and to be able to address the really needs of our people.
Right. I'm so used to partisanship coming into play in everything that goes on in the State House. Historically, we've had some conservative representatives down here who don't get paid attention to, in Annapolis at all. Now you and Jim Mathias are basically the only Democrats representing the Eastern Shore.
Yes, indeed.
In the State House. Republicans have sort of taken over, Republican governor, and there wasn't as much partisanship this year. I didn't get that feeling. I got the feeling people were working together better. How's that changed? I don't really understand how it's changed.
Well, honestly, we're working together, and we made that known. Matter of fact, our first Eastern Shore delegation meeting in Annapolis, we meet on Fridays at 9 a.m. We wanted to set the tone that we are there for the people and that we were going to work collectively while having in mind that we certainly do come from different backgrounds and ideals, and so we can stand on our own position, but at the same time, overall, it's about what it is for the people, and we've been able to do that. There have been maybe a few issues that we are, on the opposite sides of naturally, but overall, it's been really good working together. Even in other parts of the Eastern Shore have called me to ask for input. I'm in Kent County quite a bit. I feel like I'm almost being represented there too, the representative. But that's also been opening doors for me to understand what their concerns are as well, and as I represent the whole area.
Yeah. Those delegation meetings, are they open to the public?
Oh, yes. The 9 a.m. on Friday mornings, and our chairman, Delegate Otto.
Yeah, Charles Otto is the chairman.
Yes, and I actually serve as the treasurer for the Eastern Shore delegation.
Yeah.
And we've been working together. When issues come in, we look at those collectively. So
I've heard that Delegate Otto, he's almost too accommodating in those meetings. He's too polite, that maybe more could get done if he was more direct about things.
Well, I mean, everyone has their own style, just as you mentioned, as I do.
He preaches inclusion. He really does.
Yeah, I think it's necessary. I mean, because we have so many areas that we must cover, but at the same time, there has to be a balance. There has to be a balance that we have the information. We can't just act in haste, because if we do that, we could find ourselves years from now trying to clean up the mess. And I found that he welcomes whatever the issue area is that we're trying to address on that particular Friday, listens, get the information, and try to strike a balance and make sure that each member also has an opportunity to say their piece.
Right.
So I actually appreciate his process and his way, his leadership, if you will. And the other thing that I must say about Delegate Otto is that when he says he's in favor of something or against something, at least you know where he's coming from.
Yes, he does, yeah.
And you can appreciate that.
Yeah.
You can appreciate that, because honestly, you don't have time personally for the games, mind games and those things. And I appreciate the fact that he's like, no, this is something I can support. This one, no. You know, and you can appreciate that.
What I like about the delegation outside of party is that each member seems to have their own little area of expertise, and they bring all that to what's going on. And that it's not like they're all watermen or they're all farmers. Right. Everyone has their own thing. And talk about that a little bit. I mean, is that true? It's how it feels, at least.
Oh, yes. And it's been good because we've been able to build upon those strengths. And, for instance, the business community, Delegate Johnny Mouse, he's over in St. Michael's area, or he resides there. But he's been very knowledgeable about, things that are going on in the small business community, as well as his other colleague. And so
Chris Adams is all about small business.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So they've been able to bring that balance and that information to the table, as well as Delegate Carroza. She's in, Ocean City area and bringing that information to our delegation.
Yeah.
And so it's a good mixture of information and persons with strengths and weaknesses. So we try to do that balance. And then what we found on the floor while we were, we all sit kind of together, except for Delegate Mouse and Delegate Adams there on the other side of the house. But if there was
they don't sit with you guys, which is weird.
It is weird, but we'll find
it's like the number ran out and they had to go to the other side of the room. It's really strange.
But it's really neat. Sometimes we'll pick up the phone while we're on the floor. If we're working on a bill and it's getting ready to affect, Eastern Shore, we're like, what do you think? Where are you on this issue? And so, ironically, we're looking across the way and talking to each other. But just in our area where we have the majority of the Eastern Shore together, we are asking each other, this was heard in your committee. What are your thoughts on it? How do you think this is going to affect? Is this a good bill or not? A lot of my colleagues would do that for me with the health and government. We had a lot of funeral home bills this year. I worked for a funeral home ever since I've been in high school or got out of high school. And they would say, what are your thoughts about this? This is on pre-planning. Is this good for the people? And I would say, yes, this is actually a good bill. We vetted it, and this is what we're hearing back home.
Right.
So we were able to bring all of those pieces together and make some good decisions.
Which funeral home do you work for?
Well, I work for Stewart Funeral Home by Holloway Downey.
Okay.
Yes.
See, and that connects you with lots of people. So I'm sure you get lots of input, even when you're at work and you don't want input probably.
Do you work with me? Because I find that all the time, especially when the viewings, the evening on viewings, and I'll be standing there.
Because people are desperate for anything to talk about at the viewing.
And I get so much, intel, basically. And then also they're, wanting to ask me, can you help me with this issue? Ironically, it happens a lot while I'm at the cemetery where we're getting ready to travel, and they're asking me. I said, okay, wait a minute. Let me get your information.
Let me put on my delegate hat.
Yeah. Give me your business card or something. I'll call you on Monday or something to that nature. But it goes back to the fact that people find different venues, comfortable opportunities for them to at least express their concerns to their representative. And, it works. It works because they are in their comfort zone, so to speak, and they feel as though that they are not intimidated by, say, the bricks and mortar of a facility, whereas that alone can be intimidating. I know that was the reason why I always had community meetings, because everybody may not be comfortable coming to the county council building and now not coming to the state house, or might not be able to have the ability to travel to Annapolis. And so when I came back after session, made sure I had community meetings in Pocomoke and Dorchester to at least get the word out and say, hey, this is the trend, this is what I'll be doing, and bring me some of your ideas about legislation, because they may have their very own. I got an email first thing this morning about a gentleman living in Mardella Springs. He has a particular idea about legislation. So I'm going to respond to that email today, maybe even just go ahead and call him and say, hey, let's talk about this a little further. So there are ways of getting the information, and I'm out there with the people trying to do that.
Yeah, people give me lots of ideas about how they like to see the paper run, so I completely understand
sure.
that. But it's, they feel like it's theirs. It comes into their house all the time.
Absolutely.
And they feel like there's a personal connection. So you completely respect that. You understand that.
Yes,
and this
indeed.
is all our state, so I
yes,
get that.
And we all have a stake in it, literally.
So when you're growing up in Salisbury and you're at Parkside High School, could you ever imagine that you'd be a county councilwoman and then a delegate in the General Assembly?
Well,
how did you get into all this?
Interesting enough, I was reading first thing this morning my American Legion Auxiliary magazine, and so it brought me back to the days where I was very, very involved in the American Legion Auxiliary, the junior girls unit. My father made sure I was at those meetings every Saturday.
Wow.
And so that encompassed, volunteering, and then also becoming an officer in the American Legion. I was able, thankfully, to move all the way up to the national level and attended two or three of the national conventions. And the concerns naturally were the veterans. And so I found myself being able to be a spokesperson for veterans issues, not only in the state of Maryland, but in other states that we attended the conventions. And I felt that it was something that I was interested in doing, trying to at least, again, connecting people to resources. And so... and
that was something that your father inspired you into that?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. And I'm very, very thankful, because it's been able to open doors as far as right now I serve on the Veterans Caucus in the House, and knowing what I grew up with and taking that information and still keeping the connection with the local American Legions and hearing what their concerns are is bringing it full circle for me. But having that experience as a child and still now instilling that in my children and then moving it through this political arena, it's been a blessing, because that is the foundation for me. It is volunteering and veterans issues and being able to have that and move through the ranks. And even while I was in high school, a lot of my friends, they knew she's busy with the American Legion this weekend and she's doing this. So even my friends, welcomed that. And that's kind of how it started. Then when I graduated from college, I was then able to secure employment with Pocomoke City Hall, and worked firsthand closely with Russell Blake, awesome city manager. And
longest serving city manager in the United States.
Yes,
just
indeed.
retired.
And just retired, and we had a wonderful celebration for him on that evening. And I was able, again, to get the foundation of working with state agencies and grants and water sewer projects, and just amazing. It's amazing how many things I was able to garner just in the short period of time I was in Pocomoke City, and then went on to the governor's office.
And you had a thankless job down there doing the Section 8 housing.
Well, yes, that was part of the job. And then he also had me working on a lot of the grants for the city. That's where I learned a little bit about program open space and the business loans that were available, 1% interest loans that were available for businesses. So it it was like going to school all over again, if you will, where I
Right.
had all these little subject areas and was able to at least get information on it and understand it a little bit better.
The cool thing about Pocomoke, and people don't realize this, Snow Hill has a county government.
Hmm.
Berlin has Ocean City. Pocomoke doesn't have anything. Pocomoke's all by itself.
Right, right.
So its success is all based on whether it can create the success
For
itself.
themselves, yes,
Yeah.
indeed, yes, indeed. I recall early on when I first took the job there that Russell Blake and I were out on 13 and just looking at the area for businesses, the potential at that time.
Yeah.
And now to see it, really come to fruition with at that Walmart, the Ruby Tuesdays. I mean, all those things weren't there at that time, and
Yeah.
so to see all that come to fruition and still see the efforts to improve downtown, the Discovery Center, that has in of itself been a great tool for our region, actually, because schools are coming down there. And I remember when we started working on that project.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So good things.
How can people get a hold of you if they want to give you their views?
Oh, sure, absolutely. My Annapolis office is still open. I have my assistant; she's there, and our telephone number there is 410-841-3427. Also, my email address. I have also recently opened a district office.
I heard that.
Yes, right across from you.
We're in downtown Salisbury together. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. And that office is open by appointment only because I'm finding that I'm at a lot of
Right.
meetings, but then have had a lot of meetings in the office and really getting issues resolved right here in town.
I keep stopping in for coffee, and she's
I'm here. We're together. But so there's accesses there. I'm actually on Facebook, Twitter now, new things for me, and getting ready to launch my website.
excellent.
So been busy since the session, but it's all good things and all available for the citizens.
And if we can, we'll get you back in late fall to talk about winter when session starts again.
Sure, yes,
That'll-
indeed, because
that'll
by
be
that
fun.
time we'll have the meetings with the retreat coming up with
Right.
our committees. All committees are going back to probably around September, October,
Right.
and really reconvening and dealing with some issues.
And some hard work coming up on the opiate issue
Yes,
as well.
yes, indeed.
Yeah.
A matter of fact, we're meeting, I believe that's in September as well.
Okay.
And we're going to reconvene, I should say, because the lieutenant governor had an opportunity to go out throughout the entire state with this task force to get ideas firsthand from the people on the ground. And that information is going to be presented to us, the committee that I'm actually able to serve on. And then we'll be able to hopefully make some decisions and see what legislation can be put in place, because it is so necessary to address the issue. Just recently, my son, he's a cadet with Salisbury Fire Department, and I have listened to his little radio every now and then. And unfortunately, just the other day in Delmar, a young lady,
Yeah.
same age group, that's been known and recognized as the top area of persons involved with heroin. But the EMS had to respond to that, and we
Yeah.
got to figure out how to address that, how to really give the people what they are in need of, because it's detrimental and it's unfortunate.
It's bad.
It's unfortunate across the state, and so I'm thankful to be able to serve and bring that information back to the Eastern Shore.
She's Delegate Sheree Sample Hughes. She's serving us up in Annapolis. So how can people get a hold of you?
Sure, they can contact my Annapolis office, and you can reach me at 410-841-3427. And we also have our email, and that's right there on the state website. Also, I've just recently opened a district office, and that meeting is by appointment only right there on 113 Baptist Street. And I'll be there, be able to meet with you.
She's serving us up in Annapolis and trying to make our community a better place, and we really thank her for being here.
Well,
Thank
thank you.
Greg Bassett from Salisbury Independent, another edition of 101 right here on PAC 14.